Hey guys, what is up? It's Dusty here, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto News. And today, I think we have a juicy episode. I'm gonna be honest with you, I've actually re-recorded this video about 4 times because every single time I was like, not perfect. You know, it is what it is. However, what I want to talk about today, guys, is I want to give you all a summary of what I think the most important thing that's going on in crypto is right now. That's a summary of what we've been talking about for the last couple of days. I want to give it to you right now in lightning speed. Then I want to move over and kind of attach that story to some of the things which I think are important to know about as well. Not so much a summary of what's going on, but you'll see as we go on. And then I want to kind of transition it further into XRP and one of the most important things about crypto, which is, in my own opinion, looking a little bit further. What I mean with that is, right now, a lot of people are really small-minded about their crypto, and I want to kind of expand their horizon to a certain perspective, I guess. But you'll see as we go further inside this video that I'm going to explain it from a certain side, what I think about the small-mindedness, what's going on in crypto right now, and I'll most likely put a couple of timestamps down below if I don't forget about it. So sit tight, enjoy the show. And by the way, this is a real background. You might see my fingers go fade away a little bit. It's real. All right, just so you know, I can throw something there right now. I can. That was, you know. Okay. Anyway, all right. Let's cover this. So first of all, IMF chief says the Fed rate hike could throw cold water on global recovery. Long story short, what's happening right now is the Fed wants to increase the interest rate. I've explained it a couple of times before, but if the interest rate goes up, then generally speaking, the cost of money becomes more expensive, meaning if you want to borrow money to innovate, to expand, you have to pay more. So the likelihood of that happening, the attractiveness of that goes down lower. And generally speaking, on the other side too, people are going to save more. As the interest rate goes up, people want to save more, right? Because they're less incentivized to spend. Less spending means prices go back down because there's less demand for things. And that's a whole freaking circle we've talked about a couple of times on the channel. That's generally speaking not what you want, specifically not what you want after such a heavy period of, how do we want to call it? You know, the whole CV19 situation. How do we want to call it? I don't know. But generally speaking here, the markets are not doing that good if we're looking at the actual people and the actual things. On paper, however, it is doing quite good, and that's the difficult part. NASDAQ, S&P, all those things were soaring, doing amazing. Yet if we look at the reality of things, the majority of people got worse off throughout the last couple of years. And that's, again, what's not being reflected in the number, and that's also what could potentially throw some cold water at global recovery, as, again, we're still trying to recover from a certain point. Now, a couple of numbers I have in just a second. Might throw that number around. We're actually going to question whether or not that's actually the truth. And that's actually also what I'm going to attach the whole story of being small-minded, basically. You're not open-minded enough to see some further things, but let's first start with the starts, right? There was an article right here. Investment strategist warns crypto markets in a massive bubble set to burst. Long story short is you can be right, you can be wrong about this. Nobody knows, nobody cares. Meaning, if I say that we're eventually going to pump, I think the majority of you guys are saying, true. If I say eventually there's going to be a crypto market sell-off, you're like, true. What if I told you that there's a very high chance that next year the crypto market will fall 50% again? Would you be like, oh, what do you say? Well, it's just, I think, simple probability. So Pompliano, for example, said, Bitcoin has officially fallen 50% since the all-time high of 69,000. This is the 4th time that this has happened in the last 4 years. Logical deduction or deducing puts us in the sense that it's going to happen again next year, or at least within, let's say, about 2 years or so. That we're going to see another drop like this because it's just happening every single year. It's not really that big a deal. Then again, what I've also shown you guys pretty often, I think, throughout the last couple of months here, is that we could have expected this to happen. You can see here from Plan B showing the Fed balance sheet, which is increasing like freaking crazy. But in my own belief, also, I don't think I have that open right now, guys. I don't think I have that open. But basically also that, generally speaking, the crypto prices are very volatile, but we know the general direction that it goes towards. It goes up and up and up. And even though there might be a couple of hikes in that little journey, generally speaking, we're going up. Now, a couple other things that happened that we need to kind of attach this stuff to. Bitcoin accumulation addresses hit all-time high as nation states buy the dip. Is that really significant? Not too sure. I call out for a lot of manipulation in the crypto market anyway, and so whenever we see these huge addresses or a huge number of addresses accumulate, I know for a fact that it really does not mean too much. And even the numbers might show, wow, so many people are buying, it's amazing, what is going on, why the price is going down? First of all, you don't know how many people are dumping, right? So that's kind of from a certain perspective. But also, it misses so many key points, right? If you have a certain formula that you want to use to put into basically a formula, I guess, how the Bitcoin price is determined, the number of accumulation addresses is such a small fraction of what would make the price move if it even did, that I don't think it's relevant whatsoever. Then again, count me out if I was wrong about that, but I just don't personally think we can actually use this information for any good. And so people who are marketing with this heavily are saying, nations are buying, or Michael Saylor is buying, this is amazing, this is crazy, we should all celebrate and go out in the streets and go naked. I think personally that you're throwing the ball a little bit too far. Again, maybe it's just me though, right? I'm just putting that out there. $1 billion sent from Tether Treasury to Binance. Here's why. Well, happens every single month-ish. Happens very often. Amid the current market crash, $1 billion worth of Tether have been sent to Binance. Past couple of days were particularly devastating for crypto. During Saturday's trading session, Bitcoin price crashed pretty significantly. Now, Whaler detected a big transfer. In a few minutes, it will transfer quite a lot with a third party to perform a chain swap, converting from Tron to Ethereum for 2 billion USDT. The Tether total supply will not change during this process, which is basically, they had a lot of Tether on tier C, so on the Tron blockchain. They wanted to send it over to Ethereum, EVM compatible, easy peasy cheesy. So that's just what happened there. Nothing too significant, nothing to really worry about, nothing to, hurt somebody over, I guess. All right, moving over. Here's a couple of pieces of news that I didn't properly cover earlier today. Breaking: BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager by $10 trillion under management, has filed a blockchain ETF. Not a Bitcoin ETF, blockchain ETF. Most likely meaning they are basically combining a lot of different blockchain stocks into one little ETF. I can't call it little, I guess. And that's most likely what's going on right there. They filed for it though, meaning they're so interested. We've seen before, right, how this man has so much power and how they're going to most likely push crypto to a certain level pretty significantly. But understand that this person, or at least the company as a whole, filing for a blockchain ETF, if you look inside what BlackRock has done throughout the last couple of decades, these guys are insane. Really, it's mind-blowing. This is a wake-up call for people. Blockchain, let me go to this one. Blockchain is not going away. Blockchain technology will only keep getting bigger. What we're seeing right now is the fundamentals being put into place. Basically, BlackRock, the announcement which we're seeing right now, this is just such a teeny-weeny little... this is just such a small part of the entire journey. Basically, it's like the first couple of percentages. You got to understand that almost every single asset manager, whatever it's going to be, Pumpliano, I think, talked about this too, will eventually get into crypto, blockchain, and anything of the sort. It's funny how people call for bigger crashes and say it's all over when the ETFs and the filings for them are just now starting to happen. People are only now starting to get some exposure to crypto, and generally speaking, the majority of these bigger investment companies have not even gotten the authority yet to invest themselves into crypto. But I bet your ass that a lot of them actually want to. That's what you got to keep in your head for a little bit for what I'm going to tell you guys right now. All right, so we had a couple other small pieces. First of all, let's quickly check this out. We already did it. All right. We had a couple of things about the Ripple VSC lawsuit, right? And so a little summary about that I think is very important for the rest I'm going to say here. Fox Business journalist says SEC legal team declared Ripple non-security in 2018. What could have changed? Let me remind you guys, again, like I just said about small-mindedness. The SEC doesn't know what they're doing. We don't know what the SEC wants. Right now, there's a lawsuit going on between Ripple and the SEC about XB's clarification, but also about Ethereum, obviously. There are not even rules for crypto just quite yet. Understand that if this was such a small piece of technology that was going to be gone tomorrow, they would have made some rules very quickly. Because we've seen that 1,001 times. If there's a legitimate scam that they know is going to just most likely fade out of existence in terms of demand anyway, they'll make some regulations that make it really annoying for people to get into it, so it's gone even quicker. With crypto, they know this one is about to last. Whatever they put on paper has to really be good. That is why they can't go head over heel to just quickly rule something out. You got to remember that for yourself. That's a very key part. I guess one thing I forgot about Ripple that I just needed to mention as well is how this kind of relates to two things. One is Ripple is expanding, opened its first office in the European Union. So like, okay, juicy stuff, right? Apparently they got themselves an office in Dublin, Ireland. Just good stuff. I can't really say too much about it in the sense of I don't know what they're going to do over there. I'm not sure if it's just for intellectual property that they're making a new system like that, or just for tax purposes or what. Maybe they just wanted to go for a new country because of the way in which the U.S. is right now being a little bit of a whiny. But we can only just speculate, as I don't officially know. It says here they're negotiating to set up 3 regional offices: Dubai, New Delhi, and I believe Dublin. However, no hatred out there, but Hassan, as far as I know, has shared on multiple different occasions news that is not officially confirmed, in the sense that he's put some stuff out before it's actually out that turned out to be wrong, if you know what I mean. So I'm not necessarily trusting this. Then again, it is quite logical to deduce that they have talked about opening something in Dubai. They've literally done now in Dublin, and the New Delhi one. I think I've heard some stuff about that before. I think they even have a headquarters there, no? Like a bigger office there in New Delhi, in India somewhere. So just wanted to quickly share that. And again, regarding the whole situation of earlier today, the entire update, it basically revolved around the fact that there's really right now a difficult contrast between what the opinion about the SC is and what the fact is. And that's, again, key to my whole story here, being small-minded in a certain way. It's like the earliest of the earliest. That's just basically the point that I'm trying to make. Now, little interception. Guys, if you are not following me yet over on Instagram, you might want to do so. All right? This is my first video that you can actually see my hands, or, like little dirty nails or whatever. But I still think it's kind of funny because I don't know. I have done this crypto stuff and I've been dusty for so long. I've never shown you guys a lot of the fun videos or fun stuff that I have. And I'm like, well, maybe now I can. So like, that's why I'm trying to share some stuff that I think you guys might find interesting. But that's why I said go check out my Instagram. Maybe follow me over on Twitter if you haven't done that yet. And let's get into the real stuff. All right. Hopefully I still have it open. Okay. Real stuff now. So, when I talked about small-mindedness, you know what my most primal point was, guys? Is that I honestly believe that the majority of cryptos that we're watching are going to be going so severely skyrocketing in terms of price that is going to leave a lot of people amazed. And I think a lot of people can't really fathom, or, yeah, I guess really fathom, how crazy or great it's going to be as far as I basically have the plans in my head, or how I see the future happening. There's quite a lot of different things which come into that, though, which come into my idea of how it's going to work and why I say it that way. Let me quickly say it's not financial advice in any way, shape, or form. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I can't see the future. We can just think about stuff and then discuss that stuff, make it an open topic for discussion. And maybe I'll say something which you think is stupid. Please ignore. If I say something that makes you think, hopefully, that's what I'm here for. So let's start from the get-go. Crypto's right now doing pretty bad. We can go left, we can go right, but it's doing pretty bad. Relatively. Crypto's doing not really too much, though, depending on how you look at it. If you go to any Bitcoin chart right now, which you could do for yourself really simply, or even just here on one of the broader charts here, not sure. I think because I reloaded my computer, these things went off again. But what I wanted to show you guys is if you zoom out for just a little second, you're starting to notice, oh, wow, okay, we broke here, that is, wow. Well, it is actually only the last couple of days here. I'm going to say even the last day that this actually has been broken. I think the last couple of days. But specifically that we have made now a double bottom for the Bitcoin price at about $35,000. It's literally just now that has happened. Beforehand, it literally looked as if we're just making higher lows and higher highs. Basically looking like this, right? Where we're basically making higher lows, higher highs along the journey. Right now, what it's looking like is we made a top, made a bottom, made a new, I guess, almost similar top, made a new bottom, and we basically have a little bit of a sideways channel going on for Bitcoin. As literally throughout the last couple of months, nothing has happened. Can you necessarily call this negative? I don't think so. Because we hit a high, right? We came right back down. We hit a new high, but kind of on a similar pace, came right back down. Before we're most likely going to just come right back to it and try to overbreak it. However, that's still short term. That's still not actually zooming it out enough, because very often we like to put it into a logarithmic chart. If I can actually auto it here, though, and kind of show you guys what the general process is for Bitcoin. Oh, it's on Binance. So Binance doesn't really have that long of a history before that. But generally speaking, usually if you put up a logarithmic chart for Bitcoin and you basically zoom out a little bit for yourself, you're starting to notice, man, oh man, is what we're seeing right now in terms of correction so small. It's so insignificant basically to the fuller side of the story. And I often like to relate that back to XRP2 in the sense that, well, throughout this entire journey, there have been multiple occasions where XRP's market volume was a lot more significant. Now, why do I bring that up? Well, because honestly, guys, when Ripple's lawsuit settles, which is going to be the first lawsuit in crypto that's for a real crypto with a real team, and it's different than kicking all those, right? Those are not really cryptos in the way that we know them. Once that settles, there's a very high probability that the price is going to do some crazy maneuvers. We're thinking maybe 10x, who knows, right? We don't know the exact number, but we think something along those lines. However, that is off what people call out for me saying is that's going to be like the maximum XP price or so. We often talk about, let's call it 10x. Let's call it 12x, 10x. So at this point, it would be about $5, $6, because that's about 10x. Right now, XP price is really dumped pretty significantly, actually. But if you want to take that a little step back and just say, okay, was it $1 before it's going to go to $10 or between $8 and $10, which I don't think is too crazy. If we see that happening, that's with the current XP market cap, and that's a pretty bullish little thought process. However, a question that you must ask yourself is, how is XP going to do relatively in terms of market cap? If we look back 2017-18, there have been multiple different occasions where XP actually had a 15, 16, here even 18% market dominance. Or here at this point, it had more than Ethereum. Before Ethereum came into existence, by the way, it always had more than Ethereum, obviously. It was always second in terms of crypto ranking. Here it had about 12%, also beat Ethereum for a little while, 14% I mean, 14.5 beat Ethereum. Point being, basically, here as well, it beat him. Point being, at a couple of different points, XP has already beat him. What if it can actually do it again? Because let's think back. Right now, in the crypto rankings here, I've just told you guys about zooming out, which basically means if you zoom out, you'll notice, hey, crypto's really not doing that bad. But the question is, where can it go? How high can it go? Because right now, it's not doing so bad, but generally speaking, it's a little bit downwards. How high can we go from here forward? Is the maximum $140,000 to $200,000? Where is it? Well, if you go look at XRP right now and any of these cryptos, it's all pretty small in comparison to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the main thing. Dominance right now is actually going up a little bit. It's right now back to 41.5, ETH 17.8. And we got to kind of go two sidelines. One is Bitcoin, one is XRP, and it's both relative. I'll tell you guys what I mean with that. Where can Bitcoin go? Well, we usually like to look at a couple of different markets. And when I say, for example, that Bitcoin will most likely 10x, 100x over the next couple of years, people often look at me like, what? What do you mean? What are you talking about? When I say Bitcoin goes to $1 million, very often people look at me with a little bit of a, what do you, this guy, is he completely right in the head? But, guys, you got to remember, this is not just one stock market, right? Which, by the way, are also pretty significant. If you look here at the numbers for a little second, largest stock exchange operators worldwide as of October 2021 by market cap of listed companies in trillions of dollars. Something you got to do for yourself a little bit, right? These are the different stock exchanges and how much money is inside there. So right now, the entire crypto market has about $1.6 trillion, which is, generally speaking, from this list, in terms of all the markets, it will put it right here. That's the crypto market. I honestly would like to say that most likely it'll move up the ranks towards above the stock market. Why? Because it's money. And now, for how you value money, things get a little bit more tricky or difficult, really, because one thing you might want to do is go look at GDP and whatnot. But one thing I'd like to point out with GDP and why I have it open here is because wherever you look at GDP from in this entire little list of numbers, you start to notice, wow, okay, if we look back at 2000 up to now, from 2000, GDP was about 34,000. Right now, 2020, 2022, it's 100,000. Once more, let's compare. 34,000, it's 3x'd in the last 2 decades, basically, in the last 20 years. What does that mean? Is it going to 3x in the next 2 decades as well? I'm not necessarily trying to say that. I'm also trying to say a lot of crazy things can happen, like, for example, the stock market crash here in the CV19 situation right here. But as newer technologies come out, you will most likely, as we also saw in 2002, basically, after the dot-com bubble and whatnot, things might go even more exponential. Specifically with the numbers I've shown you before, with all the printing, for example, like Plan B has shown right here. Here we go. Things might go a lot quicker from now forward in terms of GDP, in terms of all the numbers and what is the norm. Remember, guys, and I've actually shown you guys this a couple of times before. Oh, is it not loading anymore? It is loading. The rise of global balance sheet. How productively are we using our wealth? As of this point, there's actually a couple of arguments to be made that that most people can't really fathom what real wealth is, how much it is, what it looks like, how much you can get to, where it's going to, basically what it is. In the sense of how we relate that back to crypto, because I'm going a little bit theoretical here, a little bit stupid. I've also prepared this video a couple of days ago, and I've been trying again to get my point across properly, and it takes me a long time to get these more deeper stories in. because it's such a heavy little story about GDP and how I want to kind of relate that back to everything else. If you look at all the numbers of how big the world is, how big the economy is, how big the money market is, and everything like that, it's so strange when I hear people say that Bitcoin cannot go to $1 million, the crypto market cannot go to $100 trillion, for example, and all these things, because I keep asking why not. We don't know really what the max is, and that's why market cap doesn't necessarily matter. It's just the valuation of crypto in dollars. And there's two things. One, do we really care about the value of Bitcoin, for example, in dollars? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Crypto's entire purpose was to not care about that. Then again, like some people have otherwise called out for, well, then what do you value it in? Some others say, well, we value it in Bitcoin because that's the main currency. So your sandwich is not going to be 0.0001 Bitcoin that's now such and such dollars. No, it's just 0. Whatever Bitcoin. The dollar thing is kind of irrelevant in the same sense that you're not going to look at a piece of bread and think, that's dollars, okay, but how much is it in gold? Not that many people, I don't think, do that. And so for Bitcoin as well, it's the same thing as the dollar was right now, or the euro was right now. That's how you're going to take a look at that. And the strange part is that it's really volatile. But I think maybe as the price increases much more, we're not going to see it being as volatile anymore as time moves on. And it basically brings up the point as well. We can't right now fathom a non-US dollar standard because it's been this way for over 100 years. It's hard for us to think of something that has literally never been done before. And that's, I think, the most important part here of just expanding your mind a little bit, that a lot of things can change. A lot of things can change. Do you really think, obviously, right, that the U.S. basically expected the U.S. dollar to become number one, and that number one in the sense of that it's the main currency, basically the reserve currency right now, or the sense that the U.S. market was going to be number one and stay number one? I'm going to say, yeah, they anticipated that, they were preparing for it, but they didn't know for certain, nor could the entire would have known 40 years up front, for example, 20 years up front. You don't really know that type of stuff. And what's, I think, going to happen from here forward is that a lot of things are building up right now. The foundations are being set for kind of like a crypto standard, crypto to become the main thing for here and forward and whatnot. And not enough people, I think, are looking at the real numbers and thinking, well, yeah, indeed, we cannot really know how high it's going to go. We cannot really put a number on how big crypto can get. It's almost impossible because we've never seen something like this before. So we cannot really put it into perspective. And also that's what I often like to do. Look at the debt clock, for example. Do you think if you told a person 30 years ago that we'd be in this crazy amount of debt, they would even understand how that would be possible? No, because the metrics in the economy basically change as well. If you ever told somebody before that the U.S. was going to print this much, they would have slapped you in the face for calling the U.S. dollar so strange, or the U.S. government so something. Things change. Things change quite rapidly. How I want to relate that back to XRP is like, if you're telling me, for example, that a certain dollar valuation per XP is not possible. Let's say, put an arbitrary number here, $25. Tell me why. If you're going to tell me, well, because it's a shitcoin, we don't have a conversation, because I think that's not a proper argument. If somebody says, well, because of market cap, then I'd like to come back and say, well, what do you know about market cap? So what can it do then? Well, yeah, I mean, it can obviously not go to $4 trillion. Why not? So you don't believe that crypto would just keep increasing then? Why don't you think it could be as big as a stock exchange? Why not bigger? Because it's actual money. And even though it cannot get printed, it's the actual money that could be the underlying asset of a new stock market. And theoretically speaking, it could become the biggest of these markets, or an aggregate of all these markets as its literal money. And again, money we value pretty differently. And it's hard to say how much money there is out there because, of course, there's different valuations of that. So it's hard to measure. But generally speaking, I think there's just a lot of room to grow there. So if we're talking about $4 trillion for XRP's market cap, is it possible? Well, yes, it is. Is it going to happen? We'll see. But is it possible? Well, obviously, because we don't know why not. We don't know why there would be any restriction as these markets keep growing. And it's just about the rate of growth. You might say, well, but we need this, that. We don't. The crypto market can actually increase with $100 trillion. No, okay, let's put it a little bit smaller. $100 billion worth of market cap with actually only a $1 million inflow. Because again, it's supply and demand. But there's also this fun part of not necessarily printing, but new coins coming into circulation. Where if people just decide to not actually want to sell that much, where things actually become a little bit more illiquid, for example, like a Polkadot, the price could drastically increase and more coins could come into the market. And that would basically put the market cap significantly higher. Long story short, because I kind of keep rambling on, hopefully you guys understood my story here. Whenever you're calling out a specific XP price to say it's not happening, you got to remember for yourself that in terms of market cap, a lot more is possible than might seem. And if XP actually wins, comes back and wins the loss, for example, let's say it goes 10x, that's $300 billion, which is crazy, right? For Bitcoin. Well, most likely if XP does win, the crypto market will shovel and most likely increase quite significantly. But also, that is still thinking that XP is kind of in like a lower ranking position. Or if you're talking about the crypto market hitting $10 trillion, and XP right now has a relative part of significantly small. What if it actually goes back to those 15% levels or whatever that we've seen before? Why could it? Well, because right now ETH has been put here and XP has been put here in terms of the SEC and what they think and how they talk about it. That could eventually reverse, and that could actually become really detrimental and negative for the Ethereum if Ripple does end up winning and they go after Ethereum for a little bit, or if this lawsuit does point out some of the discrepancies or whatever, discrepancies just in general with Ethereum, that could also be kind of detrimental. All right. I don't think I've explained it the best way once more, but I think it's good enough in the sense that it's just about being a little bit more open-minded to understanding that fathoming where we can get to is pretty difficult. I don't think many people can do that properly. Not even I can do that. Putting a restriction on the crypto market cap or saying this or that is going to never happen is, I think, pretty illogical because there's no rationale that could have expected crypto even to pop off to where it is right now. I don't think Satoshi even expected this to happen, as we can see from a lot of the documents before. So there's also nothing to say about where it can go in the future. Then we can kind of relate that further in the sense that a lot of these things which people thought were never going to happen did happen, and a lot of things that people think going to happen for sure will most likely never happen. In the sense that could always be a different crypto that's going to overtake everything. There could be new Bitcoin 2 in 5 years. Who knows, right? So keep your mind open to this type of stuff, and don't just shrug somebody off when he says some crazy stuff is going to happen just because of market cap restriction. Because again, following this video here, you most likely understand now it's unfathomable, and we should understand, which doesn't make sense, that that's the way it's most likely going to be for a little while. So yeah, once more, fundamentals are being set in stone right now. We've seen BlackRock's guys try to go for these ETFs. It is happening as we speak right now. I want to talk about this one just briefly in the sense that I think as well, we have not really seen a Bitcoin standard ever, right? We've seen right now that a couple of countries are trying to get into Bitcoin really, but it's generally speaking really volatile. Right now, I think that's why it's a lot more difficult to see Bitcoin as a main adoption unit because it's so volatile that if you were to buy your car with Bitcoin right now, it'd be a crazy different price tomorrow. If you do your taxes with it, it would be crazy. But that might actually change over a while as well as we get more stable, as we get closer and closer to the end date of all the coins being in circulation, basically. As the mining goes on and we get more halvings going on. You know, in 60 years, for example, the amount of new Bitcoin coming into the market is going to be so significant that we, once more, can't really fathom how the market would react to something like that. Think about it for yourself. What would crypto be in 50 years from now? Maybe we won't be alive, but think about it, though. And that's what I kind of wanted to talk about today. Long episode, I know. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, though. I'll see you guys again in another crypto video later today. Make sure you press the like button if you enjoyed my little rant, my little talk, and hopefully I didn't bore you all.